Welcome to Heritage Stories and Performing Arts. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our episode 5 of Itihaas Ke Pannon Se. As you would have guessed by now, our story today comes to you from the state of Kerala. Kerala, also known as God's own country. Kerala, the paradise of Ayurveda. Did you know that Kerala was the first state in India to go digital? And Kerala is also known for its 100% literacy levels. That is about today. What about Kerala's history? Did you know there was a king much before the mutiny of the 1857 where he revolted against the British East India Company? A lesser known fact. Well, Itihaas Ke Pannon Se, episode 5, brings to you such unknown stories from Kerala. And sharing the story with us today is Shubha Das, our very special storyteller. And I must share with you, Shubha is a little under the weather today, but going with the spirit, she's here to share the story with us. So thank you, Shubha. Let me share a little bit about Shubha with you. Shubha is a true Bangalorean and a banking professional turned certified career counselor and early educator. She's currently based out of Delhi. After 8 years of clatter and clink, she found her music amidst the giggles and guffaw of children. And there has been no looking back since then. Storytelling happened to her as a professional hazard. And has since she shared many stories from toddlers to teenagers at schools, libraries, bookstores, and festivals. A self-trained artist, she visualizes every story of hers as a piece of art and believes in performing it in a manner that leaves an oral and visual imprint with linguistic hues in the minds of her audience. Shubha is part of the Wise Bee team and calls herself a story under construction. So Shubha, welcome to Itihaas Ke Pannon Se, episode 5. Hey, hi.
Hey Sarita, thank you so much for having me over.
Thank you for being here.
And thank you for that lovely introduction that you gave me. So we set on.
Yes, so all set and I hand it over to you. I'll just go off the audio, the video and the audio.
These were the lines of Vellathol Krishna Menon that describes the love for freedom that had engulfed the homes of Kerala during the pre-independence era. When Sarita asked me to hunt and look for a lesser-known story from Kerala, I decided to take a trip along the elegantly cascading river Nila, which is also known as Bharatapuzha in Kerala. I walked through the meandering roads on the banks of River Nila and reached this beautiful little village called Kumbidi, a village that is known to be fertile for anything that's culturally and traditionally oriented. I decided to walk a little further to the small Idavari of the village. And there, I reached this 116 years old ancestral mansion, the Naalukattu Taravadu, called the Anakara Vadakketta Taravadu. This ancestral home has been a witness to several freedom movements and social reform movements of Kerala, and has also played a great role in shaping several freedom fighters over generations. It was the year 1905, 23rd April to be precise. The summer had set in, and the heat of the freedom movement was already beginning to be felt on the skins of the people of Kerala. Anakara Vadakkattu Taravadu heard the cries of a newborn baby. The midwife cried, "Pengutti Ana." Perimbilavil Govindamenon and Madhavi Amma were blessed with a daughter. They lovingly called her Kuttimalu Amma. Yes, the story I have for you today is about A.V. Kuttimalu Amma. Now, her father was a Tehsildar at the Malabar region, and he had to soon leave for Malabar for his work. And Kuttimalu continued to live with her mother, Madhavi Amma, at the Anakara Vadakketta Taravadu, because that was the tradition back then, that the women and her children would stay back in the maternal home. That was the matrilineal society back then, which now has transformed into a matriarchal society. Well, that's a story we will talk about later. Sarita just told you that Kerala is one of the most literate states in the country now. But back then, that was not the case. So for some reason, people thought that it wasn't important to educate girls and send them to school in that era. And so Kuttimalu Amma just received the basic education up to 6th standard. Soon, her mother passed away. She was very young. She continued to stay at her maternal home until her father remarried. Her father remarried Kozhipuratta Meenakshi Amma, a gem of a person she was. And Kuttimalu Amma moved out of her maternal home and joined her parents. Meenakshi Amma didn't leave any stone unturned to bring up Kuttimalu Amma and showered her with love and affection and with stories. Stories of inspiration, stories of motivation, stories about Mahatma Gandhi, about Sarojini Naidu, about the works of Sri Ramakrishna Ashram, and many such freedom fighters of that time. These were unknowingly laying the foundation of a freedom fighter in Kuttimalu. All of us have a special inclination towards our maternal homes, don't we? Kuttimalu Amma was no different. Although she had moved out of her maternal home and she was taken care by her stepmother, she still had close ties with her maternal home. And so she was very well apprised of the national movement that was going on in the country, especially because her cousin Ammu Swaminathan was also a very active participant in the freedom movement back then. The seeds of a freedom fighter was already sown in her. 1921, the Malabar region witnessed the Malabar Rebellion, where the farmers revolted against the colonial rule and the feudal system. This was one of the most horrific incidents that the Malabar region had witnessed, because the Britishers arrested all the farmers who had revolted and herded them into a windowless wagon and sent them off to prison in Coimbatore. You can just imagine how it would be to stay in a windowless wagon. We staying in this house in the lockdown with our doors and windows open still felt so captivated. We felt so helpless. Imagine the plight of those farmers in that wagon where they had not a small hole to breathe in. The train had just chugged about 140 kilometers and reached the Kodur railway station. And the railway master opened the doors of the wagon. Out spilled several bodies of farmers who had suffocated to death. This was considered the worst incident in the freedom movement of South India. It is also termed as the Jallianwala Bagh of South India. Kuttimalu Amma was reading all of this. She kept hearing to these freedom movement stories, stories of valor, stories of atrocities that was going on. And she kept having this urge within her to get on to the movement and do her bit for her country. But she couldn't. Because her father, although a nationalist and wore a qadar, was a government servant. So she had to wait for her day. और कहते हैं कि जब किसी बात को पूरी शिद्दत से चाहो ना, तो पूरी कायनात भी तुम्हें उससे मिलाने के लिए मजबूर हो जाती है. Kutimalu's case was no different. The year 1925 proved out to be the turning point in her life, because that was the year she married Koripuratha Madhava Menon, a practicing advocate in the Calicut bar. Now you might wonder as to how getting married to him turned her life. Well, he was a very active member of the freedom movements that were happening in that region and closely worked with Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. And that gave her the much needed fuel for setting out her flight into the freedom movement. She says that the day she got married to Madhava Chetan, she got married to Congress as well in the same pandal. Her bridal sari was a khadar. And from the day she got married to the day she breathed her last, she wore only and only qadar. The gates to the freedom movement in her life was finally opened. She was elated because now she could do what she had been longing to do for so long. The year 1930 saw a new freedom fighter in the country, and that was Evi Kutimalu Amma in the form of a Swadeshi worker. 15th August 1930 was observed as All India Political Sufferers Day. Kutimalu Amma, along with all the other leaders, women leaders I must say, organized a procession and went about the Malabar region propagating about this day and calling for hartals and strikes. All the women stepped out of their house, for this was the first time that the women were directly taking part in the national movement for the country. This was a big blow for the Britishers because it questioned the role of Britishers, the legitimate role of Britishers in ruling the country. But Britishers didn't leave an opportunity to torture these women demonstrators. And every time they stepped out on a movement, they made sure that they came up with some atrocity or the other against these women. But the women did not give up. 22nd February 1932, Kutimalu Amma led a procession under the civil disobedience movement. She was a mother of a 2-month-old baby, a nursing mother, mind you. She, along with all the other women, as expected, were arrested by the Britishers. And once again, the Britishers found this as an opportunity to torture the women demonstrators. The district magistrate said that she could not take her child along with her to the jail. And he said, "You should have thought about the consequences before you broke the law." But Kutimalu Amma, for the woman that she was, took a stand and fighted her rights. And she said that she is not moving a step forward without her daughter. The jail superintendent had to give in. And from then on, children below 6 years could accompany their mothers into the jail. And that was the first time the 2-month-old child entered the premises of a jail. Well, you might wonder as to what is so glorifying about this. The fact that this gave the women community the much needed push and the confidence that even they could enter into the political world without any fear, and that they could also stand hand in hand with the men and fight for their country. The year 1942, Kutimalu Amma was once again arrested for the Quit India movement. But by now, getting arrested had become a normal thing for her. She had got arrested 3-4 times by now. But that didn't seem to deter her. And she was also the first one to be let out. The women and the youth who had got motivated by the calls of the do or die of the Quit India movement heaved a sigh of relief on seeing her. And from then on, she was in the forefront of every single procession, every single movement and every single freedom struggle that the country faced until India got its independence. She was lovingly called Opa, which also means sister. Surprisingly, even her husband and children called her Opa. So this was the story of Kuttimalu Amma's political service. She was also well known for her humanitarian services, but I guess that is going to be a story for the next time. This story may not be a story of valor with swords and fights and war, but then this is a story which involved social reforms because she brought within the movement among women to bring them to the forefront, bring in the confidence in them to fight for their country. And so I felt this was a story that needed to be told. This was Kuttimalu Amma's story, and she breathed her last on 14th April 1985. I hope you all enjoyed the story.
Wow, that was a lovely story. And Kuttimalu Amma seems to be a very, very interesting personality. You also wanted to share something about her home, I believe. And
Yes. So I wanted to show the much celebrated Anakara Vadakitha Tarvada. So I will just share my screen for everybody to see.
Yes, please.
This was that Edavari that took us to the ancestral home. This Tarwad has seen many illustrious freedom fighters like Ammu Swaminathan, her daughter Lakshmi Sehgal, who is more fondly called as Captain Lakshmi, who headed the Rani Jhansi regiment under the Azad Hind Fauj, and her daughter Subhashini Ali, who is an active member of the Communist Party now. There are many more illustrious people that this Tarwad has seen, and this Tarwad in itself has many, many stories to say.
Wow. So there's something that you mentioned which stood with me, that it's a home, an ancestral home that shaped several freedom fighters. So when you said several freedom fighters, you did mention Rani Jhansi Regiment. So can you tell a little bit about who joined the Rani Jhansi Regiment?
So it was Ammu Swaminathan, Ammukutti Swaminathan, who was a member of the Constitution, the group who was into the drafting Constitution of India. It was her daughter, Lakshmi Swaminathan, who went on to be called as Captain Lakshmi or Lakshmi Sehgal. She was highly impressed by Subhash Chandra Bose because when she was at the age of 14, she had accompanied her mom for a Congress conference, and there she happened to meet Subhash Chandra Bose and listen to his ideologies. And that is when she had decided that someday she would want to join his force. And when she got a chance in the year 1943, if I'm not wrong, she readily accepted the post of a captain for the Azad Hind Fauj.
So we also have other storytellers here with us. Please join us, and I'm sure we would all love to, welcome. Lavanya, Sonia, Hema. So what a wonderful story about a wonderful woman who had this journey from, a simple home and went on to make changes in her own unique way. Isn't that so? And a home that has so many freedom fighters, as she was saying.
Very true. I think, first of all, Shubha, Valara Sundari aitundu.
Thank you, Lavanya.
Story is also adipuli. I just love the fact that how this lady, inspired women to get into politics. I think that was brilliant and beautiful when you said that she stopped to say that I'm not getting inside without my 2-month-old child. So I don't know, yeah, I mean, the stories that are coming in this Itihaas Ke Pannon Se is just bringing all the women power, and I'm like, every day is like, wow, how beautiful it is.
True.
Absolutely.
And Shubha, I must say, what a way to start, yaar.
Yeah.
I was almost jumping and dancing. I didn't understand a word of what you were saying because of the language barriers we all live with. But, I told in Lavanya's story also last time that, and I think I said the same thing in Hema's story as well, that, the passion oozes out when we use music. And I'm sure when I use Hindi music freely, my South Indian audience or my audience from, I was doing a story for people in Boston and Atlanta last week. I did a music piece in Hindi, knowing fully well that these guys wouldn't make sense, but it does, because
Music
the
connects.
threads are so connected, and
True.
that's what I think the music plays a role. So
Yeah,
what a
that's the beauty
powerful
of
beginning.
music.
I have to also mention two more things about your performance.
Please.
I loved when you said Shah Rukh's dialogue. You said it much more passionately than probably he said it in whichever movie. But that Kainat dialogue and the Puri Shiddat Se Chaho, it came out like really well. And also that one moment which will stay with me when you showed the flight. That, oh yes, I'm ready to take the flight to that freedom fight. I mean, these are small things which
So powerful, very
really,
powerful.
which they go with the audience. So lovely.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Shubha,
I'm
also
so
I
glad it's connected.
took the trip down the Nila river with you. The way you just took us
Yeah,
along the
yeah,
banks of the
absolutely.
river, I think we could actually visualize the entire route, and took us to the ancestral home. So wonderful, and a big round of applause, because I know you've got high fever today and you're still here and you shared this wonderful story with us. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all of you to be here to watch. It's really beautiful. And thank you to you for giving this opportunity, because I myself was not aware of all these stories. Because although my roots are in Palakkad, yet there are a lot of things which I didn't know. And when I started researching for this, so many stories stumbled out, and there was no time. We had this discussion, remember? I had 3
Yes.
stories to say.
Yes.
And I could just not put it into this time frame.
I think
some other time.
you should mention the other characters that you came across from the same home, because I'm sure a lot of people here are not aware of the link that these amazing personalities have to that home.
True.
So
So, as I said, Ammukutti Swaminathan, her daughter, Lakshmi Swaminathan, her daughters, and also Ammukutti Swaminathan had another daughter, Mrinalini Sarabhai, and her daughter, Mallika Sarabhai, then Captain Lakshmi's daughter, Subhashini Ali. So that was like a whole chain, and I really didn't know that they all belonged to Palakkad. And I was like, wow, what a, so many things
absolutely.
just pouring out, tumbling out of the treasure chest.
So Mallika Sarabhai, she was a surprise for me, and also this amazing story once you shared about the Rani Jhansi regiment. So it was so inspiring to see how this woman went to Singapore to work, and she met Subhash Chandra Bose ji, and she convinced him when she realized that he wants to start an army for women. And so I mean, do share something about that, because I think that's so powerful in the
Right. So I think that whole army has been very underplayed, because they never got a chance to actually enter the Indian soil and fight the Britishers. But having said that, nevertheless, they played a very important role in liberating women, because women realized that they could also, handle the guns, and they could also stay in the hardships, and they could also put up with all those physical trainings, and they could be independent. Because, I'm talking about those times when women were not allowed to go out of their house, and there was a certain time limit until when they could stay out, and they were not educated, and all of that. I mean, in that realm, I think it was a brilliant thing, to train these many women and to travel them from, Singapore to Burma and thereon. So it was beautiful, yeah. But then it's sad that, they had to be disbanded and sent back home. But then, yes, I really wish they had an opportunity to fight against the Britishers, enter the Indian soil and do it. So, yes.
And it all started from that home with this beautiful woman, the lovely woman that you shared the story about. So I guess strong women raise strong women.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I think even the stepmother connection was so beautiful. I mean, that's a very beautiful thing, that she gave in all the thing that Kuttimalu needed. I love the name, yeah, Kuttimalu. I think I'm going to keep telling that for a while.
So lovingly, Kuttimalu.
Yeah, it sounds so well. Very nice. Thank you so much.
And what I always feel is that, over the ages, whenever a woman had to come out and fight, I think they really have been out there. I think it is just a thought that keeps us away from, going out and standing up for ourselves. So I think all these stories, when we're listening to all these stories over the weeks, I think it's reiterating the fact that, women are completely Powerful, very powerful. And this lady is amazing. And like Sonia said, music always speaks. Shubha, it spoke to everyone.
Thank you so much. I'm glad I could do the story. Thank you once again, Sarita. Thank you so much.
Most welcome, Shubha. It's wonderful to have you here. If we also have Rajshri and Sri Karuna here.
Yeah, I totally love this song. I don't understand Malayalam as much as I do Kannada and all that, but the way you started off, and as Hema is saying, every week all the women power is going on higher and higher. And so as the universe conspires and connects the dots, all right from Sonia onwards, it's always the women stories that are coming up from, inside. So it's really delightful to hear these stories. And I always thought this Mrinalini Sarabhai and Malika Sarabhai are Gujaratis and their roots are there in Kerala. Oh, so much to know, so much to learn. Really wonderful.
The song, actually, the para that I sang means that, may the flag fly high. Maybe may India's flag fly high, and the women in front of every house dance and sing and play and welcome the flag with love. So it is to symbolize freedom. That is
upon popular request, one more time, please. Once more.
Awesome.
Sure. But then I want all of you also to sing with me. Would you?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. Just a minute. Let me get the. Day 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 dom day day dom.
Day 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 dom day day dom.
Day 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 dom day day dom.
Day 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 dom day day dom.
Pora pora nalil nalil dura dura muyaratte Bharadakshma Deviyude Trippadagagal. Pora pora nalil nalil dura dura muyaratte Bharadakshma Deviyude Trippadagagal. Day 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 day
tom day 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 tom day 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 day
day day
dom.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me and
Thank you.
giving me all energy to perform today.
Thank you for joining, Shubha, in spite of the challenge with the health. And with that, viewers, thank you so much for staying with us this evening to watch. And please look at all the episodes in case you have missed everything. This is our 5th episode. We have some lovely stories from episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And next Friday, we come in with our episode 6. So stay tuned on Itihaas Ke Pannon Se on HSPA Facebook page. And I now take your leave and log off from the live session.